Hi, and welcome to Living Title IX with Betsy. That's me. This week, we are going to spend some time talking about the overlap between FERPA and Title IX. And FERPA is something that we all hear in schools, whether it's K-12 or higher ed, but really it's just a privacy protection for students within our buildings or our institutions. And it's federally mandated. But what I want to say about FERPA is that there are a lot of exceptions, and I want to talk through those with you today and talk through what those exceptions look like, their impact on you, and a few little caveats of additional steps that you need to take under some of the exceptions. So let's start with the list of the exceptions that I'm going to talk through today. The first is health and safety. That is an exception. The second is planned enrollment. The third, judicial orders and subpoenas. The fourth, Title IX matters. Specifically, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then directory info, and finally, need to know. I'm going to go reverse order, at least start from the bottom, as we're talking about these today. So the need to know piece, that includes individuals who might be working within your institution. So you need to, or your district, you need to share that information with them to support a student, to provide a safety plan, to implement all of those supportive measures that we talk about often, or you need to implement a sanction. So those are things that might need to be shared from one school to the next when they move up, let's say from middle to high school, or they move within programs and there happen to be no contact directives, things like that, that we might have to share internally. So that need to know exception is really an internal exception most of the time. Next, we're going to talk through directory information. So this is a pretty easy one. If someone is enrolled, especially at an institution, and they are your student, that information is likely public, just whether they're enrolled. It's not a question of, I can give everything about them, but somebody might call as police or another connection that we might be working with and say, is this person a student? And you can answer that question with a yes or no. We're not giving broad information there, but whatever it is that's our directory information. So that might include emails or things like that as well. Not necessarily sharing where they live or their grades or the outcomes of Title IX situations there, but that directory information can be used as an exception. Title IX matters specifically. This one means with our complainants, we're sharing outcomes of our Title IX matters with our complainants in those cases, which is different than we would share in other types of cases. So we're sharing that information there. Judicial orders and subpoenas. Ooh, okay, so have you ever received one? I have, and sometimes you're like, ooh, this is serious, right? Like, what is this thing? One, I want you to work with your counsel on responding to judicial orders and subpoenas, but this is an exception. So we are sharing the information, but we have an asterisk. We have to respond to the individual that they're asking about to let them know that we are, or we have to notify them that we are responding to this subpoena. They have an option to quash that subpoena in court. Silly word that really means stop that subpoena from providing the information. So that is something that's in their right to do. So we just have to notify them or give our best attempt at notifying them that we're going to share that information because we have received a judicial order or a subpoena. The next one would be planned enrollment. So when a student is transferring from our institution or district and we're sharing those educational records with the other district, we need to let the student and their family, if they're K-12, know that we're going to share that. It's going to potentially include our disciplinary action, our Title IX actions. So we're making sure that we're telling the student we're sharing this, and then we're able to share it. And it's best effort to notify. So we don't have to get a hold of them before we share it. We just have to notify them that we're doing it. And then finally, our health and safety. And so this is often where we're collaborating with police or local law enforcement, campus law enforcement, whoever it might be, when we have a situation that involves a threat to the health or safety of our complainant or our respondent, or our district as a whole, or our institution as a whole. We're using this in our threat assessment cases often. We're often notifying parents and guardians, even in the higher ed space where it's not an automatic notification, but we're having a concern about someone, so we're notifying them to make sure that they're helping their student. Or, sometimes we're communicating with a hospital about a health and safety exception, things like that. So these are really all different options for us to use in sharing information. My biggest caveat here is to document your why. Why is it an exception to FERPA that you're sharing it? Make a note for yourself, just like you're doing in all the other aspects of Title IX, so that if you're asked later why you shared that information or what exception you're relying on, you're really clear about that. And you remember, because if you're like me, like a few days later, I've forgotten completely everything about why I did what I did. So I have to make sure that I'm keeping good notes on that. As we finish up, a couple reminders. Make sure that you are laughing at yourself this week, supporting each other, and celebrating those small victories. We're documenting all the things that we need to document. That's just a small victory that I always love to celebrate. Make sure you're getting it right. But whatever is on your plate this week, I hope it's awesome. Make sure that you are liking, sharing, commenting, all the things, so that we can share Living Title IX with the entire world. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? But all right, have a great week, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.